Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here with Crypto Common Sense, and I have your Bitcoin slash cryptocurrency update for, I don't even know what day it is. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, May the 27th. Wow, another month almost gone by. Before I jump into the content for this video, please do me a huge favor. Hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And of course, make sure you leave a comment. That helps drastically with YouTube's algorithm. So let's talk about Bitcoin a little bit. We'll keep this video fairly short, but I wanted to do a little mini update, midweek update, if you will, and talk about what's going on. Also talk about what I've been up to the last couple of days because I haven't been as active on social media as I normally am. So first things first, the reason for my inactivity is I've been working on a side project. Every once in a while, something comes up that just is so interesting to me that I decided to split focus a little bit. That happened. I'm not going to go into a great amount of detail on it because this isn't about, it's not a sales pitch or anything like that, but it's just something I worked on. I've been working on the last week or so. Had some really, really good results with it so far, and I'm pretty excited about it. So I was spending a lot of time on that. So I didn't do any trading the last week. The last trade that I actually took was on the 18th. And if we look at let's look at a daily chart, and we'll talk about what's been going on since then. So, the 18th happened. We had some sideways chop for a couple of days, and then it dropped, which was all, good and dandy. Then it had this bearish retest. I did do a video right around this time talking about double tops having bearish retests. Of course, that's what that was. Perfect. I mean, it doesn't get any more perfect than that. Look at this. That yellow line was the neckline. It came up, pinged it, and it bounced right off of it. But once it pulled down, it's actually turned back up. And what's really interesting about this, let me turn the moving averages off for a second. It's really interesting what the stock market is doing. And this is all looking so suspicious, right? So this is actually the stock market. Well, it's not the stock market, but this is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. This is like the futures for it, or the index. It's the US 30 over on TradingView. Basically, this thing trades, I don't know if it's 23 hours a day or 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday. They probably close for an hour like the CME does. But I don't trade this. I just watch the chart. So if you're wondering, wait a minute, don't you know? No, I don't know. I don't trade it. When I'm trading stocks, I'm day trading stocks, and I'm trading individual stocks, not the actual Dow. So for example, like I was trading a lot of Tesla last year, right? That was when I traded. This year I was trading like the USO, which is a oil ETF. I was trading SLV, which is a silver ETF. What else? I traded some Mazda, and there was a few others, right, that I traded. But I always trade individual stocks. And then once I find a stock I like, I tend to just trade that stock until I find something else I like better, because they all go through these periods where it's like real easy to trade them. Or it's simple and nothing's really easy. Okay. But when I look at this chart, what I had actually pointed out in Discord last week was this, right? It had actually, even though it was inside this channel, it had actually broke above this downward sloping line, and it had come down for a perfect bullish retest. So I had said then, this is probably going to go up, right? Now, whether it's legit or not, this doesn't have anything to do with that. But they trapped the bears. It's like they took a play right out of the Bitcoin playbook. This was so nasty and so messed up. Okay, this right here was a critical level in the Dow, right? It's 23,036, and essentially the Dow needed to stay above that, right, to maintain any sort of bullish momentum. If it dropped below that, it would be, definite bearish structure. So a lot of people were watching that level, obviously. It bounced off of it here, all good. Then it put a tail down. This is actually a bear trap. So for anybody who tried to get ahead of the game and tried to short this as soon as that broke, well, it immediately went back up, and they either got stopped out or they got trapped, right? So when a trap is set like that, it often will move off of it in the opposite direction and leave those people trapped. At least for, a period of time until they get liquidated or have to close their positions. So that's what it did. It set this really nasty bull trap, and then it came up above this line, came down for a bullish retest, And right here was actually a long opportunity. Now, again, I do not trade this, so let me be very clear. I didn't take a trade here. I'm not going, oh, look at this money. No, 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 no. Just saying this was a long opportunity. So when I saw this, it made me basically, second guess trying to short any type of stocks at the moment. So if we look at this right now, this is now up about 6.5% from that long entry point back there. Really, really went up, broke the bearish structure, right? Put in a higher high, broke out of this consolidation, and up it went. Now, it's still inside of this channel, and guys, I know, it's a crypto channel, but you have to watch this because all of this is affecting Bitcoin. Bitcoin is basically playing tag with the stock market, okay? And we can look at the SPX and all that other stuff, but for the sake of saving time, I'm just going to look at the Dow today, right? So this thing is still inside of this. It's reaching up toward the overbought territory, which is extremely suspicious because it's also inside of its golden pocket right now, right? It's between the 61.8 and the 78.6. A lot of people would say the golden pocket 61.8 to 65, so it's actually slightly above that. But this whole zone is a danger zone for longs, right? This whole zone is a place where price could reverse at any moment. And then on top of that, you've got the freaking 200-day moving average right there. And just like with crypto, that's a massive, massive level. So nope, still don't believe in the rally. Still think it's BS. And, I'm certainly not bullish on stocks. Now, that being said, I'm up on stocks. I have a small amount of stocks. I don't have a whole lot of stocks at the moment. But I was looking this morning, and my portfolio on stocks, the ones that I have not sold, is actually up about 14% from February, not March. March was the crash. I'm talking about back here. I'm actually up about 14% on my portfolio since here, right? And that's mostly because of the trading I did through here, and also, full disclosure, because I bought a bunch of silver, right? And not silver, the physical form of it, but the ETF, SLV. I bought a bunch of SLV when it was down at like 11.50 or 11.88, something like that, and I think it's up to like $16 now. So that was a huge part of it, right? But I'm still bearish. I'm just waiting to see when I should sell that, basically. Okay. So when I look at that, it just looks like a bearish retest that's trying to go down. So then if I jump over to crypto, right? Do you guys remember what I said on Sunday or Monday? What I was looking for? I was looking for this to turn into a possible head and shoulders. We were right here at the time when I did the video, and I said I was looking for it to do something like this, right? Well, so far it's what it's doing. So far it's exactly what it's doing. We've got this week, it's pumping back up, it's getting people excited. Maybe it's legit, maybe it's not. But all I see when I look at that is a bunch of trend lines on RSI, and I just would not be surprised at all, like I said, if this ends up doing this right here, coming up for that bearish retest, and then bam, right, crushing people's hopes and dreams. In the stock market, there's a cliche, sell in May and walk away. So I would keep that in mind. May is going to be ending in a couple of days, right? So this rally looks like a dead cat bounce to me in the stock market, which would play perfectly with this being, a fake rally in crypto as well. So on the weekly, that's kind of what I'm looking at as I'm watching the RSI down here. If we go down to the smaller time frames, this is a daily chart. Let's look at just price first, okay? So I'm going to take, there's so many lines on this. So essentially, here's what I'm seeing, guys. These are my Fibonacci levels, right? I'm looking for a retest of this level for sure. Even in a bull trend, it's very common to retest at 38.2. And if we test that, it would fill in this gap. So that's the first thing I'm watching for. Second thing I'm watching for is what happens if it can pull back to the golden pocket. Will this act as consolidation and then a move up, or will it just fall right through it? I think it'll fall right through it probably. And I'm watching this gap down here around 54, 5,500-ish, right? And of course, I'm also watching the 200 moving average, which is way down here around 58.76. So lots of levels to watch. We've got the 200 and the 50 on there. Basically, the 50 has crossed the 200, so that is a golden cross. It's supposed to be bullish by textbook technical analysis, but in crypto, it often likes to be the opposite. When you get death crosses, it often pumps up, and when you get golden crosses, it has a tendency to dump down. So we'll see whether or not this ends up being another dump. I suspect it probably will. Okay. And of course, if I take this line off and I take these fibs off, makes it a little bit cleaner. This was actually our trend line. This was our, support all the way back from March 13th. And if you look, right, things went wrong here, put in these lower highs, and then boom, collapsed. So this could very well be a bearish retest in progress where it goes up and tries to test that level and then moves off of it. I don't know that it's going to have enough strength to get there, right? It looks like right now it's kind of struggling with this neckline, so we'll kind of have to wait and see. But, so far to me, this just looks like a bearish retest and nothing significant in the bull camp, okay? So on the daily, I'm expecting something like this. You got your low, which is lower low, lower high, lower low, and, this is kind of choppy, right? So hard to say, but I'm going to say it's probably going to continue down from there, right? We'll see. We'll see. In a minute, I'm going to zoom in on the smaller time frame, and I'll show you why you got to be careful right now. So let's go over to, before we do, let's take a quick look at RSI on this thing. So this was the channel that we were in. Obviously, it broke. Obviously, it had the bearish retest, which I talked about in the last video. And since then, it's really just going down. Now, in that last video, take those off. We don't need those no more. In that last video, I said that I would consider it bullish if we could break above this downward sloping line. And we did, right? We did break above that downward sloping line. Look at this. See? Just like that. We did break above it, okay? So I want to watch and make sure that this price tucks back underneath that thing before I get all uber bearish and start looking for short positions, okay? Because right now it is above it. So it could go either way. RSI is not really telling me anything right now, right? So this could end up being a whole new trend line that ends up looking something like this. See that? So I want to watch this line as well, and I want to look for a break south of it, okay? If it's on top of it, it's still going to be, semi-cautious about getting any type of, positional short, okay? And if we go down to the smaller time frames, there's even more reason to be cautious about being short right now. And guys, I'm not saying it's going to go up. I'm just saying, like, there's no setup, right? There's no real trade for me personally when I look at this, okay? If we look at the volume's really bad. But when I look at price structure, this is almost as perfect as you could possibly get. Well, that's a 6 hour. I apologize. I was looking for the 4 hour. All right. This is about as perfect as you can get for a double bottom. All right, let me take this off. I showed this in Discord last night before price pumped up, but it was just pumping up. You had your low, okay? Thank you, TradingView. You always put the toolbar right where I'm trying to draw. You had your low right here. You had your middle. You had your second low, and look at that. Almost perfect. And then you had your move up, and your neckline was right there. That is a double bottom, and that is as clean can be. I mean, that is clean. Did I mention it was clean? Right? You had this W back here, okay? Then you had an M, and then you had this leg here. So you have a double bottom there in the 4 hour chart. So, it's completely normal for double bottoms to come back down and retest their neckline and then go up off of them. So again, I'm not looking to rush into any short. I'm still being super patient. I don't need to trade, right? I can be somebody who's trading for a living and take days or weeks and just watch. It's fine. Okay, the money is made on patience. The money is not made on chasing trades that aren't really there. So I'm doing a lot of waiting right now. And like I said, part of that's because I've got this other project that I've been working on a little bit, but it's also just the market, right? The market just really isn't there right now. If you look, there was this downward sloping trend line. It had acted as resistance several times. And we also had this upward sloping trend line. Broke through both of them. Really tough to get bearish when you're breaking through trend lines like that. But at the same time, the macro structure still looks really bad. So I don't want to long it, but I also don't see any shorts at the moment. All right. If we go down to the hourly, now there was some opportunity on the hourly, right? But we're talking day trade type stuff, right? We had this really nice upward sloping line, even though price was basically moving sideways. It was establishing this really nice base. Look at this. Just this really solid line of support right around 86.80, while at the same time, that rubber band was being stretched back further and further and further, just riding this trend line, and then somebody let it go, it popped, and price shot up off of this, like 5 or 6%, right? From this little low right here, popped up about 6.8%, and from this close on top of this trend line, popped up almost 6.5%. Really, really good trade, right? Again, did not take it, have not taken a trade since the 18th, but the hourly did have a really easy long trade there, okay? So overall, I'm just waiting, right? I'm just waiting, and that's fine. I don't mind waiting, The stock market's doing some weird stuff, like I said, and I think that Bitcoin is kind of benefiting from that. Now, let's look at a couple more charts, and then I'll talk about some other stuff. This was the CME. There were some people watching this gap on the CME. I wasn't watching it that closely, but obviously there was a gap there in the 4-hour. It is filled in now, so that's no longer something we even have to pay attention to. On a daily chart on the CME, the gaps that I'm watching, there's one up at 11 something right there. Well, tiny little gap right there at 11,795. So I want to be mindful of that in case price suddenly starts doing something weird and going up hard and fast. And the only other daily gap, I don't think there is one anymore. I'm pretty sure they all got filled in, right? Not missing anything, I don't think. Yeah, I think that's the only daily gap left. Okay, now there are some 4-hour gaps way back around 3,700, 3,570. Here it is. We zoom in. But number one, that's a 4-hour gap. Not near as important to me as a daily gap or a weekly gap, for example. And number two, it's from February of 2019, so it's fairly old. So I'm not really looking at that a whole lot. If price starts to go down and get closer to it, sure, I'll start, paying attention to it. But right now, it's really far away from it, right? So I don't care about it. I don't really care about the gap up at 11.8 either. It's just so far away, and it's such a tiny gap, right? I mean, it's a tiny little gap. I think it's like $15. Let's see. Yeah, it's like $100, right? So not very big. So the CME doesn't really give me a whole lot of indication of what's happening here. If I put the moving average on there, the 200-day moving average obviously is very important. This to me looks bearish, right? It just looks like a double top forming. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Just looks like a double top, right? Now it hasn't confirmed yet, but I would suspect this ends up being a lower high, and this probably just dumps out. Okay, it's being saved right now. It's basically riding on top of that 200 moving average, but it's not really rocketing off of it. Like back here, it did the same thing, and then it rocketed off of it. So maybe this is what happens, but I don't think it's going to. I think it's going to dump right through it, right? So we'll see. We'll see what happens with it. If it goes back under the 200-day moving average, that's, of course, bearish in nature. And I don't know if we have a golden cross on this one or not. I haven't looked. So put the moving average on there and turn it on. We want a 50 moving average. I want it to be orange because that's what I always use for the 50, and that's what I remember it as. So no golden cross on the CME yet, but one trying to form, so worth keeping an eye on. Okay. If you take a look at the RSI, I don't know if there's any trend lines we should be keeping an eye on. Thank you again for putting that right in my way. I actually love TradingView, but there's just some things about it that drive me nuts. And one of them is every time you try to click, like to add something on there, it puts the UI right over your mouse, which is really, really bad user design. Let's see. Okay, so there's the bearish retest. That's over and done with. This is probably going to be the line to watch on the CME. Is this green line here, which is not yet confirmed. It's just got one touch, right? The first and the beginning, and then the one touch here. So, but that's when I'll be watching on the CME. All right, so that's kind of the CME. And what else do I want to look at? Let's look at total alt market cap, because I shot a video a couple days ago saying that people were talking about alt season and how I was just confused about what they were seeing. So let's check in on our altcoins. Get the moving averages off there. Put this on a weekly charts. What do we have? Okay. So obviously on the macro picture, we have lower high, lower high, lower high. On the weekly picture, we have lower high so far, but it is starting to turn a bit. It's got this higher low, slightly higher high, which, by the way, this had this a couple days ago too. I just didn't talk about it because I was so confused by people calling for alt season, right? A little bit of a higher low. So, you know, somebody could make the argument that it's trying to put in an uptrend here, this little small uptrend. I wouldn't necessarily disagree that it's trying to put in an uptrend, but to me, unless I can break through this part back here at 100 billion, right, a little over 100 billion, I don't really care, right? I really don't care about this right here. I think it's just chop. I think it's just distribution, nothing more. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm saying when I look at altcoins. And again, I think a lot of this had to do with the fact that there was a couple of coins that did really well, that really popped, like, you know, Oh My's Go, OMG, it popped, you know, for 15x on Coinbase from March until last week, right? So of course that's going to add to your alt market cap with the FOMO and people rushing in to buy that coin thing, and it's the next big thing. If we draw some trend lines in this thing, this is the total alt market cap from January of 2018 until now. This is actually interesting. Had not seen this and just saw it when I drew it in front of you. So here's the start here. Here's the second touch. Here's the third touch. That's a confirmed trend line. Broke above it. I would definitely call this a bullish retest right there. Okay, so if I was looking to go long on alts, this is the spot where I would have said, hey, let me find some alt positions. And of course, it moved up almost, you know, 16.5% off of that, the total alt market cap. So back there, somebody was saying, hey, I'm bullish on alts. I could have said, yep, you know what, I see that. But it's off that line now, so that's kind of played out. And now I think the line that I'll be watching is probably more like this, right? Doesn't move up to this line and get rejected, or does it actually cut through this line? And then I'll also keep an eye on an upward sloping trend line. I'd say like this, right? So basically what I want to do is I want to wait until one of these lines gets contacted and then try to zoom in on the smaller time frames and decide whether or not I'm bullish or bearish when it's touching one of these lines, right? Whether it's touching resistance or whether it's touching support, okay? So that's kind of what I'm seeing on the altcoin picture. The video is getting a lot longer than I meant for it to be, but that's fine. I enjoyed, you know, talking with you guys about this stuff. So that's kind of alts, that's Bitcoin, that's the stock market. And one other thing I want to address real quickly is this news that came out today about Goldman Sachs. I don't know if you guys have seen this. They released a fairly scathing, announcement about Bitcoin. All right, so this was some type of, I don't know much about Goldman Sachs and how they work, but essentially this is something that they released to their investors, I guess, or the people's money that they manage, whatever you want to call it. They talked about a lot of different, wide-ranging topics, but the topic that we're obviously most interested in is going to be Bitcoin. So let's take a look at Bitcoin. All right, so here we're at the Bitcoin part. Is it a currency or is it an asset class? Okay, and they're saying that sovereign currencies meet three criteria. They're used as a medium of exchange. They serve as a unit of account, and they are a store of value. I mean, I would say that, in all fairness, Bitcoin can be used for medium of exchange, right? I've sold stuff for Bitcoin, so that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. They serve as a unit of account. Sure, right? We can look and say what's Bitcoin worth, and they're a store of value, meaning that an asset can be saved, stored, and exchanged in the future for predictable, stable value. Okay, well, I don't know about the stable value part or even the predictable part. So by this definition, Bitcoin certainly fails as a store of value. But, aside from that, I would say that it probably is a currency. Not a very good one, but it is a currency. Okay, I'll talk about why it's not a good currency in just a minute. But for right now, let's focus on what Goldman is saying here. And then they go down here. Okay, here you go. Cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, are not an asset class. They do not generate cash flow like bonds. That's not entirely true, because there are certain cryptos that do. But for now, we'll just say, okay. Do not generate any earnings through exposure to global economic growth. Do not provide consistent diversification benefits, given their unstable correlations. I agree. Do not dampen volatility, given historic volatility of 76%. On March 12th, 2020, price of Bitcoin fell 37%. Actually fell 40%, but that's fine. Do not show evidence of hedging inflation. No. So far, I agree with most of this. Now, this is bullshit. Okay, you guys know I'm bearish, but listen, I'm also real, and this is bullshit. The whole idea that they don't show evidence of hedging inflation, yeah, they do. Okay, Bitcoin is obviously worth more today than it was 10 years ago. So I think that if hyperinflation were to occur, it's safe to say that Bitcoin would probably go up in value. Now, would it go up, as fast as some other assets? Maybe, maybe not. But yeah, I think, if hyperinflation occurred, I personally believe, and this is just my opinion, I personally believe that Bitcoin would go up in price. Okay. Now, again, doesn't mean it's great, because if Bitcoin goes up to, say, $20,000 a coin, but a loaf of bread costs $500, it's not really a very cool trade-off, okay? We believe that a security whose appreciation is primarily dependent on whether someone else is willing to pay a higher price for it is not a suitable investment for our clients. So what they're saying is literally they don't believe in Bitcoin. Now, this is a big deal, guys, and you need to take this and really stop and chew on this. First off, I agree with them, okay? The whole idea of Bitcoin right now, it's basically a shell game, okay? The only value in Bitcoin right now, the only real value is, will somebody else give me more for my Bitcoin later? And that's not really what an investment's supposed to look like. But, when you start talking about that, then you're almost talking about things like baseball cards, right? When I was a kid growing up, I grew up in the 80s and early 90s, and I collected baseball cards. And every kid who grew up during that, era will probably have a story about their dad or their uncle or their grandpa or somebody who had a Mickey Mantle card or some card that was worth so much money, but, their mom threw it away when they were a kid for not cleaning the room or something along those lines, right? So as kids, we would all collect these baseball cards, not because we thought they were valuable, but because we thought one day we would be able to sell them to somebody for more money than we paid for them. And I used to get $5 a week, $2 a week at first, but then as I got older, I mowed the lawn and stuff, and I got $5 a week allowance. And I would go, it was a card shop in downtown where I live, this little small town of like 8,000, 9,000 people at the time. I don't live there now, but it's where I grew up. And, I would go to this card shop, and I would spend my whole allowance getting a Joe Montana card, or who was another one? I used to buy a lot of their cards. Nolan Ryan. He was a real famous pitcher at the time. So I would buy these Nolan Ryan cards for like $4 or $5. Spend my whole allowance on it. Right? I still have these things, and they're worthless. I mean, literally, like I probably couldn't sell them for what I paid for them, in the early 90s. They're not even worth that. That's kind of what Bitcoin is, right? It's only worth what somebody's willing to give you. There's no real stability or real guarantee that it's going to be worth more in the future. And that's really all they're saying, right? People get all bent out of shape about this, but that's a fact. We really don't know what it's going to be worth in the future. We also believe that while hedge funds may find trading cryptocurrencies appealing because of their high volatility, that allure does not constitute a viable investment rationale. Okay, well, that's up to the individual. I don't have an opinion on that. Okay, why am I talking about this? Okay, well, because I'm seeing bullish people who are saying, don't let them fool you, they're just trying to buy cheaper Bitcoin. And I'm seeing bearish people who are saying, look, even Goldman Sachs is saying this stuff is worthless. Guys, I don't think either one's the case, right? Or maybe they're both the case. Who knows? What I do know is it doesn't matter what you think their rationale is. It doesn't matter what you think their motive is. Either they're bullish and they're trying to buy it cheaper, or they're bearish and they simply don't want to buy it at all. Either way, what's very apparent is they don't want to buy it at $9,000. Even if they're bullish, if they want to buy it cheaper, that means they're going to drive the price down. And you want to play with the big companies. You don't want to play against them, right? The retail trader is not going to beat the institutional money. The institutional money is going to take the retail trader to the woodshed as many times as they can, right? And if you don't know what that means, essentially they're going to take your money. That's what happens in markets. Markets do one thing and one thing very well. They take money from the average trader and they move it into the hands of big companies. It's kind of like in poker, right? When I used to play poker for a living, it used to drive me flipping crazy when people said I gambled for a living, or when people said, oh, that's all luck. And I would say to them, really? If it's all luck, why do you see the same faces at the final tables again and again and again? If it was all luck and a field as large as poker, you would see different faces at the final tables of these tournaments every time, but you don't. You see the same handful of players because it's not luck. It's a game of skill. And the exact same thing is true about trading. It's a game of skill. And the big money takes the little money to the woodshed, right? Period. So if you got a big company coming out and flat out saying, look, we're not interested in it, whether it's for alternative motives where they're trying to buy it cheaper or not, doesn't matter. What they're telling you flat out is, we're not buying $9,000 Bitcoin. Should you? I'll leave that up to you. Cryptocurrencies have received enormous attention. I don't really care about any of this, right? I just really wanted to talk about this part up here. I think down here they start to get a little bit flaky, right? And cryptocurrency can be a conduit for illicit activity. So what? So can cash. The majority of drug deals and bad transactions are done through cash, not crypto. So none of this stuff matters to me. This is very true, though. Cryptocurrency infrastructure is still young and susceptible to hacking or inadvertent loss. Absolutely. So with that, I'm going to use that as a segue. Guys, girls, I opened this program, this side project of mine, and I was looking for people who wanted to join this case study group, right? And a lot of people chose to pay in Bitcoin, but the price to join this group was $1,000. Almost every single person, I'd say 90%, were a nervous wreck when sending Bitcoin. We wanted to, double check, triple check the addresses, want to make sure we weren't, sending it to the wrong address, all that kind of stuff. That's not a good sign for Bitcoin when it's that hard and that nerve-wracking to send money, right? A lot of people would send like $10 first, say, hey, let me know when you get that. I would say, yep, we got it, no problem. They'd say, okay, I'll send the rest, because they were nervous about it, the transaction not working the way it should. There were other people who were newer to cryptocurrency who had never sent cryptocurrency, and I had to actually walk them through step by step how to send it. This thing is so far from mainstream adoption and so far from like a legit means of doing business. It's ridiculous. And then of course there was the issue of one of the transactions took 52 minutes from the time they sent it to the time we actually received it. So in 52 minutes, in this case, not a lot changed, but with something as volatile as Bitcoin, right? That thing might have been down 10% by the time we got it 52 minutes later. So stop and think about this. Stop. Let's say you went and bought gas and you went to pay. Would you really want to stand there for 52 minutes waiting for your transaction to clear so you could leave? Right? Of course not. Now people are going to say, well, James, there's these credit cards and there's this and there's that. Yep, I understand. There's all these people trying to build these solutions to fix this stuff, but they haven't done it yet. The bottom line right now is cryptocurrency is almost completely useless as an actual currency, right? It's fun peer-to-peer for little dinky stuff, but when you're actually trying to do business, sell a product, No, it's just a headache. It's all it is. Okay, just a headache. So, when I look at all that, guys, that all plays into my bearishness. And again, we're talking about like macro bearishness. We're talking about, what I think is going to happen over the next 6 months or next 12 months, with this thing going down. We're not talking about 5 years from now or 10 years from now. If you look at the internet, right, in the 80s and 90s, it was almost completely useless for most people, right? But you look at the internet today, it's everybody uses it. So could crypto become that? Yeah, absolutely, right? I'm not in any way saying that crypto is dead. I'm just saying that there is so much work to actually do. And a lot of these people had never actually used Bitcoin. They've been, hodling Bitcoin for the last couple of years. A couple of them have been trading a little bit. But like one guy in particular, he had been hodling, and this was the first time he'd ever actually tried to buy anything with Bitcoin. And he was like, oh my God, this is a light bulb moment. He like had this epiphany, like this stuff is not what they're saying it is. This is so hard to actually use this to buy something. And I was like, yep. And see, I've taken this stuff before. I've taken literally tens of thousands of dollars. I've probably taken, over the last couple of years, I've probably taken $50,000 in payments via Bitcoin for different things, right? First, I had a software that I sold, right? Took $26,000 or $27,000 in payments for that. Then I had a trading course that I sold. Most people paid in PayPal, but some people paid in Bitcoin for that, right? And then I had this little side project that I'm doing, now, and we accepted cryptocurrency for it, and probably I think about 2/3 of people pay with PayPal and about 1/3 pay with Bitcoin. So yeah, somewhere in the ballpark of probably $50,000 in Bitcoin payments. I've been on the business side, and it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And I've also been on the side where I bought something with Bitcoin, and it's no more fun because you send it and you're hoping and praying it gets there, right? It's not there yet, right? Could be in the future. But anyway, that's it, guys. Super long video. Not what I had planned on, but hey, sometimes they just go that way. And like I said, I love talking about this stuff, and I love all the feedback that you guys give me, and I really appreciate you. Seriously, it means a lot that people stop and leave a comment, and that people stop and spend their time watching these videos. So thank you for that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up there, guys. Obviously, please remember, I'm just some guy sitting in a spare bedroom, so nothing in the video is financial advice. Nothing in the video is trade advice. You should always do your own due diligence and seek out professional financial advice from a licensed financial advisor, which I'm not, before you make any type of investment in cryptocurrency or the stock market. If you haven't already, be sure and give the video a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and make sure you leave a comment to help me out with YouTube's algorithm. As always, guys, this is James with Crypto Common Sense reminding you to please trade safe.